Fossil fuels have driven the development of our modern economies and allowed us to enjoy the living standards that were unimaginable a century ago. In recent decades, Ireland has become one of the countries most reliant on imported fossil fuel. But we now know that continuing to burn fossil fuel will lead to devastating consequences. The greenhouse gases that we accumulate in the atmosphere today will have a huge effect on all life forms on Earth for many generations to come. How we all produce and consume energy has to change fast in order to maintain any chance of keeping the Earth's climate and ecosystems intact. Transitioning to a fossil fuel-free energy network might seem daunting, but new technologies are moving fast. Embracing these changes won't only stimulate our economy, but will help revitalise local communities. Today I'm heading to the very remotest western edge of Ireland to see how new technologies can help rewire and kickstart our rural communities by changing the way we produce, network and consume energy. As part of the EU GREAT project, which aims to get small towns all over Europe onto the smart grid, Belmullet and Erris are being rewired for the future. This area of Mayo is now a tiny testbed for renewable energies. Dr. Orly Nisivna, project coordinator, tells me what's happening on the ground. Orla, this is just a fantastic place.
Well, Duncan, here we are at Carn Golf Links.
But look out there at these islands, it's the most magical place in the world.
Straight ahead is Inishglora, Children of Lear, where the fable came from. This is where there's 4 swans.
Out here, the islands out here.
Inishglora straight ahead. And the new wave energy test site is actually just off the next headland. So we're looking out over Anna Head here, and you can just imagine this in a storm force 11. Blowing winds, 30-foot waves coming in, middle of the night. You can imagine the power and the force and the energy that just is waiting to be harnessed. So hopefully the money has just been approved for this, and 2015 SEAI are putting in the substations and the cables. So wave energy is ready to go in Belmullet. We've been giving 2.8 million over 3 years to spend, and we've 10 European partners. Údarás na Gaeltachta are the lead partner on this. So it's a big deal for Belmullet to have a project of this size. Basically the project is going to look at the smart grid, look at renewable energy, look at distributive generation. We're going to look at it from an SME point of view, but also a community point of view.
So for people now in an area like this that are so isolated, and there's been a lot of unemployment around here and people emigrating, how are they coping with all of these challenges?
Well, the people on the west coast of Ireland are very resilient. It's almost in their DNA to be resilient. They have to be. They live in a harsh environment. They're rural, they're remote, they're isolated. And it's almost like these communities have to come together and they have to work together and make this possible. We're letting the community know, how are they going to own a community wind farm? How are they going to generate the finance? How are they going to generate their own electricity? And what are they going to do with it at the end of the day, Duncan? So community power.
This locally produced renewable power will then be fed into the local smart grid. This form of distributed microgeneration builds resilience into a local community. They produce some of their own electricity needs while selling their excess back to the local microgrid, which cuts down on carbon emissions. This microgrid includes Carna Golf Links, which was developed by the local community. They installed an array of solar PV panels to meet their clubhouse electricity and transport needs.
Oh, this is really cool here. We've got what? 10 of these little golf buggies, all electric driven, of course. But what's really interesting about these is that they're connected now to the photovoltaic collectors, and that goes through this inverter over here, and it powers all of these, and each of these have got 3 batteries, which make this into a little power station, all run on renewable energy. So if a community can do this, well then they can scale this model up, where it can be for most houses in the area using photovoltaic or microgeneration wind, and that energy then can go into batteries and power their cars and their transport, so the whole community's transport and mobility and their own use of electricity can be all from renewable sources.
I met with Enda Casey, Mayo County Council's Renewable Energy Officer, to find out what needs to happen to get more projects like this off the ground.
So Enda, to kickstart all of this, what needs to happen?
We have the communities on board, we have the technologies, so what we really need and what we would like to see is the investment coming behind that, be that in terms of a feed-in tariff, just to give the whole industry that confidence that it needs.
An effective feed-in tariff exists in other countries, which provides a guaranteed grid connection and pays a premium for every unit of renewable electricity sold to the local grid. Unfortunately, here in Ireland, the excess power generated brings no benefit to the producer and makes microgeneration unviable. 25 kilometres from Belmullet is Chalkgraney Community Centre, where their outreach programme is now saving money and CO2 emissions on transport costs. From an SEAI community grant, they were able to afford an electric delivery van, which is powered by PV solar panels on the roof, driving down the fuel costs to 1/5 of their diesel costs. The less money that leaves a community on its food and energy needs, the more that is available to recirculate in the local area, and this will generate new livelihoods. Renewable powered transport is emerging as a viable, sustainable solution, and this needs to be rapidly mainstreamed.
And may the blessing of Almighty God, the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit be with you all.
Father, does that mean this is zero carbon from now on, is it?
Forever.
Zero energy.
Forever.
This is it.
All right, smile everybody.
I asked Mary how important this initiative is to their Meals on Wheels service.
It's very important because we do a delivery of Meals on Wheels to the elderly and to the people that's living on alone. So it's a very worthy cause.
Great stuff.
We have a lot of people living on their own, and my staff that I have here, they do visitation, and I would travel once a week out to people myself. We would send out 120 meals. We would be the only people they would see when we deliver. It's great for the area. It's great for Chalkgraney. It's a marvellous achievement, really. It is.
So this is the start of this community on a journey to zero energy and zero carbon.
But this Sustainable Energy Community Initiative in Mayo actually started 2 years ago in County Tipperary, where a group of 10 houses in Drumban Upper Church got together to insulate their homes. They proved that clustering their homes together creates an economy of scale that saves money and creates jobs. The results were impressive. They will save €23,000 per year on energy every year. The most effective energy savings we can make is the energy we don't use. Poorly insulated homes and buildings drain badly needed money from our communities in foreign imports of oil, gas and coal. When that money gets spent on smart insulation retrofits, the money stays in the local community and reduces CO2 emissions. This initiative has mushroomed from one area of North Tipperary to 8 different communities across the county. The village of Bird Hill have brought a group of 110 households and their community centre into the Sustainable Energy Community Scheme. By getting together as a community co-op, they were able to avail of professional expertise and the SEAI Community Energy Grant.
Does anybody want to just mention from their own community's point of view what has been the pluses and benefits of the scheme?
As a board, we wanted to do something that was that would generate economic benefits for our community.
I joined the group for an after-meeting discussion over tea and scones, and to find out how a community energy co-op works.
Now, you could do it all individually, couldn't you? But you come together. Is there a benefit in collaborating?
There's a far greater range of resources available when you go as a community. In other words, the SEI grants are geared towards driving communities rather than individuals. Because as an individual, you have a limited amount of options that you can take, whereas under the community scheme, it's a far greater range of options.
We would have tendered out now and we would have got good prices in from contractors. So instead of having a contractor coming in and do one house and one attic and one cavity wall, we said, right, we've got 30 houses here, we've got 30 attics and maybe 25 cavity walls to be done. So we got a better price off the contractor.
Having a common goal, a common interest and pulling people together really adds a sense of vibrancy back into that community.
The penny dropped then after a couple of meetings with Tipperary Energy Agency, who came in and I suppose started to educate the group and what can be done at a small level. Rather than generating energy, we need to save energy.
The Retrofitting the Community Centre gave us an opportunity to showcase the contractors at work, to showcase the standard and professionalism of their work, but also then when people used it, so be it for art, for music, for playgroup, for everything and anything that goes on in the community. We now have the heating is on less, it's a warmer environment, it's comfortable.
I travelled to Lara, one of the participant villages, to talk to Gearóid Fitzgibbon from the North Tipperary Leader Programme and to discover their ambitions to expand the reach of the project.
Gearóid, we've made it now to Lara, and is this now the energy programme in action here?
This is the work in action. We have got wall installation happening here on Lara Community Centre. This is overseen by Lara and Rathcabbin Energy team and by the project manager. And we have money being invested in this community. We've been work created here locally and people saving money on energy.
Right, and how many houses are you retrofitting here in this community?
So in this parish we have approximately 30 houses in total and one community centre.
Right.
So, but across the 4 projects, we have 110 houses. We have 65 people kept in employment over the course of the 6 months.
And do you think you're getting enough local people interested now throughout those communities? Are there enough people coming out and saying, yes, we want to get into this?
We have a waiting list of 5 or 6 or 7 more communities just in this region alone who want to get on board with this project. They see the potential of it. They see the benefits in terms of jobs and the local economy.
These local champions are proving the importance of getting together on energy projects. This shows that real jobs and financial savings can be realised by energy efficiency projects. Every week in Ireland, €130 million is drained from our communities on imports of oil, gas and coal. If even half of this money stayed in Ireland, this could make a huge difference to communities around the country. Tipperary County Council have installed Ireland's largest array of solar PV panels. As part of a 190 kilowatt rooftop solar PV installation in Tipperary, this rooftop on county buildings in Neenah saves €7,500 a year, paying for itself in only 9 years, and saves 20 tonnes of CO2 each year. This shows the potential for solar energy to be economically viable, even with our weather.
The whole area of communities here, there's a very strong local sustainable energy community here in North Tipperary.
It's critical because you can see a lot of opposition happening towards renewable energy, and when it's developer-led and it's someone external coming in and telling people what they should have, it's maybe nowhere near as interesting for people and maybe gets a certain amount of negative press, whereas if it was people who own their own, so instead of NIMBY we had Only If I Own. This is the idea that communities own their own energy supplies, and it kind of promotes the circular economy where people buy energy off their neighbour and sell it to their neighbour, and instead of the money leaving and going to Russia or the Middle East, it stays local.
Unfortunately, a 9-year payback still makes the capital investment of renewable energy prohibitive for local communities. There's also the problem of grid stability and power storage. However, a community on the outskirts of Dublin City may have found a way to overcome these issues. I met with the local resident, Mick Waldron, to find out more.
Mick, I'm really fascinated about this project you're doing up here in Glenismole. But how are the community involved in this? What's going on here? What's the story?
Well, up until now, everyone that's in renewable energy are on their own. So what we're doing as a community now is taking all the elements between wind, water, sun, and combined heat and power units. And we'll be able to sell that power between each other, and other households can buy that from us, and some households can store it through battery storage.
Right, so how are you going to distribute this? Are you going off grid or something here?
No, we'll be using the existing grid, and we'll be putting in smart grid technology and smart meters within that, so that we can buy and sell to each other.
Further down the mountain, a small hydropower installation is being brought back to life, harnessing the power of rainwater stored on the hills above. This creates a reliable and alternative energy source that can supplement power supply at times when wind and solar are not available.
I'm standing in a tributary of the Dodder River, and what I like about this hydro project is that it allows the energy from this river to be shared among the whole community here. So when wind energy is low, and when solar at night time, for example, there's no solar, this energy can then be harnessed and stored upriver and then allowed to flow when it's needed and then make up the balance between power. It's like a big battery. But what's good about it is now all of the local community can share their own rainfall in energy.
Down on the sunny side of the valley, Glenismole National School has been fitted with solar PV panels, which will fit into the new smart cluster.
How do they respond to all of this?
Oh, the children are delighted. They're very excited about the way technology is moving and the way that their school can be involved at the cutting edge of what's going on. It's a very exciting project for them.
How did you explain the smart cluster to them?
Well, the children obviously can see the solar panels here in the school, and they're aware of other sites in the valley where there's the wind turbine and other things that are in existence down at St. Anne's. And so we talked about the fact that the energy is being produced and then that those sites are connected, and that the excess energy that's not being used, so they can understand we don't use the energy in July and August, for example, so where will that energy go to? So we explained to them that that's going to be available to other consumers within the area, and they understand then that the farmers locally or the parents with their washing machines or whatever can access that excess energy at a much reduced rate.
Further down the valley in Bornabrina, St. Anne's GAA Club installed a combined heat and power unit. In addition to powering the floodlights, it also provides heat to nearby homes through district heating. Any excess electricity goes to local consumers in the area. I'm really impressed with the diverse sources of renewable power being generated in this small part of the Dublin Hills. However, the main challenge facing renewable energy projects like this is how to manage the fluctuations of renewable supply to match demand. Down at the Institute of Technology, Tallaght, they're waiting on delivery of what could be the game changer in managing renewable energy.
Well, it's all just happening here in Tallaght this morning. This is the Freecon unit that's just arrived over from Germany, which is the stabilizer for the micro-generating grid. And this is the brains of the whole technology. There's a whole team of experts here, engineers of all types. And this is going to be very exciting this morning because this is the first in the world of this sort of technology, and it's happening here in Tallaght.
As renewable technologies like solar PV and wind power are rapidly becoming more affordable, I asked Joe Durkin of SEAI what this means for all of us at home.
Joe, this is a very exciting moment here in Tallaght to see this Freecon unit being installed. Tell me about it. What exactly is a microgrid stabilizer?
Well, it does a number of things, Duncan. One of the things it can do is it can take in
excess renewable electricity when there isn't a demand for it, and it stores it until there is a demand. And that's a key thing in our environment when we have like a windy day today, but we mightn't just have the demand to match that energy at the moment. Otherwise that energy would be lost.
Well, all of this is going to have to be assembled now. All the components are here. But the great thing about it is it's all within this unit here, and it can be remotely controlled, which is fantastic. So a cup of coffee would be good here now,
brilliant.
Joe. Yeah, the college.
A couple of times. Yeah.
We think of electricity as being a centralised power, you know, in big utilities, and we're really just the consumers. You know, I mean, that's the normal way it is. We've all grown up that way. Is this all changing?
I think it will change. I think we will become our own producers of energy. Certainly to meet our own needs, first of all, at our own domestic and then at our community level. That's called a prosumer. We produce and consume electricity. And we will see more and more of that as people come to grips and become more knowledgeable about their energy use and more empowered about it being their energy, because we have nearly an inexhaustible amount of energy available to us. The trick is, how do we capture it? How do we use it? How do we make it's sustainable on a longer term? And that's what we're talking about when we look at Tallaght, when we look at Balmullet, when we look at the Aran Islands and all of the energy communities that we've created in the last couple of years.
And is that happening now with this testbed here in Tallaght?
The next step is what we see here in Tallaght today, which is the FreeCon, which is a combination storage unit but also grid stabiliser unit, and those are the key ingredients that we need.
Tallaght is now becoming Ireland's leading sustainable electricity community, with targets to bring down its carbon emissions wherever it can. I went to find County Architect Eddie Conroy to see if these smart energy plans fit with the future vision for his city.
What's your involvement in this?
We were fascinated because it's a counterpoint to and a counter-proposal to corporate way that the larger energy companies have worked. And this gives people a chance to think about things locally, to use cheaper technology in a more communal setting, and we're very community facing as a council, so we were delighted that was happening and that we could become involved in it.
And is this all got to start small?
Yes, the best way for it to start is small, Duncan, that we can encourage people to use smaller technologies, and in the end of the day what we'll have is a series of small clusters adding up to a smarter town and then a smarter city, which is the way to go.
Renewable energy co-ops offer a real opportunity to struggling communities trying to secure a sustainable future. We're at the threshold of smart technology allowing us to move away from our dependence on fossil fuels, where we can invest this money back into our local towns and villages, where it will generate thousands of new livelihoods. However, these projects will remain small unless they're prioritised by government with long-term support that removes red tape. Ensuring guaranteed access to the grid for communities, an effective feed-in tariff for microgeneration, and low-interest loans for community investment. As we've learned throughout this series, climate change is the greatest challenge mankind has ever had to face. Achieving a civilized society for all without fossil fuels is a daunting task, but will ultimately lead to a flourishing future.